I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.
That is very good.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the second round of games at the T20 World Cup and, if we've got time at the end, covering a little bit of the warm-up matches that England, Australia, India, New Zealand and others played today. I am Jack Hope and I'm joined by Nakul Pande. How are you doing, Nakul?
Yeah, good, Jack. Getting into the swing of the tournament and enjoying myself so far.
Yeah, it was quite a good day today, I thought, in terms of tournament games, and decent yesterday. So we'll get into each of those for 4 or 5 minutes per game. Before we do that, though, just a quick message for our listeners. We are sponsored by Woodstock Cricket, TCP25. If you want to go over there and use a code to get money off. I am doing the production today, so whilst I did upgrade our thumbnail, I failed to put the logo for Woodstock Cricket on the title card for this episode. But Woodstock Cricket is where you should head. We're on Twitter and Instagram, bottom left corner, as you look at the Cricket Pod. And we are on Patreon, patreon.com/the Cricket Pod. If you would like to ask us questions, to chat with us, to get a hat, to meet us via Zoom, or if you'd like access to the whole history of the IPL's data processed by Max and myself in our spare time. Nakul, I think I sent that to you, didn't I? Have you managed to find anything interesting so far on that file?
No, because the T20 World Cup started 48 hours after the IPL finished.
Well, some off-season research building up for the mega auction then for you. Patreon.com/the Cricket Pod there. I think the lowest tier is about £4, which is good. Anyway, let's get into the cricket. We're going to go in chronological order, starting from the first game yesterday and building up to the kind of damp squib, which was the Battle of the Greens, Bangladesh v Ireland today. So in the early match yesterday, Group B, which has been confusing me this whole tournament, Group B has been going before Group A. But in Group B yesterday, Scotland beat Papua New Guinea in a game that had a little bit more life to it than I think some people expected, bearing in mind the two first-round results. Decent performance from Papua New Guinea. It means they're probably out, barring the most miraculous win in the history of cricket. But let's start with the positives from their point of view. They put up a decent fight against Scotland, Nakul.
They're a decent team. Papua New Guinea have had a lot of the associate nations have had bad preparation coming into this tournament because of COVID. Papua New Guinea's has been the worst of the lot, I think. Most of their cricketers play their club cricket in Australia, or a lot of it. Weren't able to travel over to Australia because both Australia and Papua New Guinea were locked down for large parts of COVID. Didn't have any cricket for 18 months. 3 of the members of the squad, Charles Amini, Nosaina Pokana, and the keeper Kip van der Riga, lost parents to COVID just in the last 10 days, I think, just before a week before the tournament started. COVID has been ravaging the Papua New Guinea in the last week or so, and they're coming into this on a run of bad form, and they looked rusty in the first game. But this was the Papua New Guinea that did so well in the qualifier. They are an excellent fielding side. They really do attack every single ball out there, and they give the impression of having more than 9 fielders out at any given point. And they bowled extremely well. Cabo Vagimarea, I thought, was superb with the new ball, really getting some lovely in swing and bowling pretty well at the death as well. It was a very good game, and Scotland, I think, had to play better than they had done in the first game. They were forced to play a little bit better, even than they did against Bangladesh, where they kind of got out of jail with that partnership with Greaves and Watt. But the middle order, they controlled the middle of the innings, which has been difficult for teams to do. And using the fact that the track at Al Amarat is a pretty good batting surface. It seems to have good bounce, good carry. It seems pretty true. Some of the boundaries are pretty short, and Richie Barrington particularly enjoyed himself out there, played a delightful knock. And in the end, Papua New Guinea didn't have quite enough with the bat to come back from the start that they made Scotland very, very good in the power play with their 3 experienced fast bowlers. But it was a good game and a very entertaining game of cricket, and showed Papua New Guinea off a little bit more than they managed in their first round loss to Oman.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I think it showed as well why Scotland are one of the better associate nations in the T20 format. We saw them beat Bangladesh, as you said, because of that big partnership between Greaves and Watt. But we also saw them, in that first game, restrict Bangladesh with their range of bowling options. I thought in this Papua New Guinea game we saw that they have other batters that can bat in a slightly more conventional way, maybe, and build a slightly more conventional T20 innings. And like you said, that Berrington knock was fantastic from their point of view, and probably the match-winning factor. But then again, with their bowlers, I thought what we saw was them sort of shuffle through the deck throughout their innings before they finally sort of solved the problem of the various different Papua New Guinea batters. Because Papua New Guinea, I don't think they ever really threatened to win the game, but they were never completely out of it either. So it did take some reasonably astute captaincy, I think, and it did take some shuffling to solve some of those problems. And we got another decent look at the depth that Scotland have across the board. I mean, I would say, Nakul, that they probably look the most complete as a T20 side of the smaller nations we've seen so far.
I would think so. I mean, they've got a lot of depth in the seam bowlers. They were able to leave out Sufyan Sharif, who was their main death bowler, and brought in Alistair Evans, who did very well in a different role, bowling in the middle overs. Brad Wheel, who's been one of their best bowlers coming into the tournament and had a decent 100 for London Spirit, unusually so for anyone playing for the London Spirit men, but was a bit expensive today. Norman Vanua took to him very well, and Captain Dariga down the order. But in the end, Davey and Evans left them with too much to do. And they've got a lot of good spinning options. Hamza Tahir, who's a good bowler, hasn't played yet this tournament, but Watt and Lees can really control that middle very well. Watt is a very good bowler, can bowl at any stage of the innings.
Really impressed with Watt so far. Yeah. He's maybe been, I don't know if man of the tournament might be a bit strong, but he's clearly a player with like all the skills that you need to be really successful in T20 cricket. That is about 5 minutes on this match, and we said we would stick to that time frame roughly. I did see, just to finish off on it, I did see one really good tweet. I can't remember who it was, so I can't attribute it, but it did the rounds, as it were. And it was a list of Normans who have fought hard but failed to conquer Scotland. William the Conqueror, and Norman Vanua. Vanua's knock was quite special, I thought, and it was good that Papua New Guinea will have at least that to remember from this tournament. In the second match yesterday, the evening game or the afternoon game, depending on where you are, or I suppose the morning game, if in certain time zones, Bangladesh took on Oman in a match that, looking back on the result, looks like it was quite an easy win for Bangladesh. But for about 30 of the 40 overs, maybe 33 of the 40 overs, it looked like this could go either way. And I think at points Oman were actually on top. Batting first, Bangladesh were bowled out for just 150-ish, with only 3 players scoring double digits. But Oman they let them off the hook, didn't they? They needed 73 from about 9 overs, and they fell 26 short. At one point losing 7 for 21 in 5 overs. Nakul, again, let's try and be positive here. Oman, they gave Bangladesh a big scare in this match, didn't they?
Bangladesh, certainly against Scotland, and for half of this game, really looked like they wanted to be anywhere other than playing this first round. Oman, by contrast, were absolutely bang up for it, as you might expect. The crowd came into the Al Amarat Stadium. It's not a big ground. It's only 3,000, 4,000 people with the temporary stands, but there were people outside the ground as well. They were loud, much louder than those small numbers would suggest. And a little bit like PNG, they were very, very enthusiastic in the field. Unfortunately, they're not as good a fielding team as Papua New Guinea, and they dropped a few catches, a few very simple catches. Took a couple of good ones as well, but dropped some very simple catches earlier on. Mohammad Naeem and Shakib Al-Hassan both reprieved early and both went on to make a significant difference. Shakib's turned himself into a player who obviously is not a power player, but he's turned himself into a player who can score quickly without that power down the order. Mohammadullah as well down the order as well was very impressive. They addressed the selection error, I think, that they made of playing Somya Sarkar instead of Mohammad Naeem in the first game. Didn't really understand that. Naeem came back and showed why he's become Bangladesh's first choice opener. Oman have a really, really good bowling team. Bilal Khan looks like a really good bowler. I mean, he was the leading wicket taker at the qualifiers, and people who watch a lot of associate cricket, this is not new to them, but he bowled extremely well, getting the ball to swing at pace. Fayaz Butt, former Pakistan, under 19 player, bowled extremely well. Kalimullah as well. and Zishan Maksud kind of has this bit of a golden arm thing, but their fielding lapses meant that Bangladesh, even with that collapse at the end, ended up on par, maybe 10 ahead of where they thought they might be at one stage, and then it was very top heavy for Bangladesh. But when Jatinder Singh in particular was going well, it did look as though Oman might just ride the wave, but Mahdi Hassan was extremely good in the middle overs, along with Shakib. And Mustafizur was able to had enough to work with at the death, even though he bowled. He completely lacked control. There was that 12 ball over, I think it was, or 11 ball over right at the start.
11, yeah.
He kept swinging the ball down the leg side time and time again, and the over ended up only going for about 8, but mostly that's because the batters couldn't reach it. And then I think Oman will definitely be a test for Scotland, and I'm really looking forward to that game. I think Oman do rely on their top three, Aqib Ilyas, Jatinder Singh, and Kashyap Prajapati, who's only very recently qualified for Oman. So recently, he wasn't actually qualified when the preliminary squad was announced, and so was not actually in that squad. Has only just come into the squad, into the team. But he was batting very well in the many games that Oman have played leading up to this tournament, and looks like a good player. And they are a team who, if you have a bad day, can make you look extremely silly. And they are absolutely here on merit, and are a team I'm looking forward to watching develop over the next few years.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. I think that they surprised me, actually. I was the one that previewed them on our Cricket Podcast World Cup preview, and I said that they might struggle to beat Papua New Guinea. I have been proved wrong there, and I think, there's like a lot of these smaller nations. There are some obvious holes. Their bowling is excellent, I think. Their batting after 4. And possibly even including 4, to be honest, is shaky at this level. But you never know. Yeah, against Scotland, if Jatinder Singh has a day, they could definitely beat Scotland. And the other positive for the Omanis that came out of this match, of course, is because it was a bit closer than maybe we thought it would be in advance. They protected that really strong net run rate that they built in the Papua New Guinea match, and it means that this Scotland match coming up, tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, it's effectively a decider. There's no margin for error for Scotland to lose this match, which is great, isn't it? It's like a bonus knockout match for fans.
And we've got that in Group B as well. The Ireland Namibia match is a knockout with Sri Lanka now all but through to that game. We'll come into that game later. I mean, there is a possibility where Scotland and Oman both go through if Papua New Guinea win tomorrow against Bangladesh, and then Scotland and then Oman go through, and then Scotland and Oman both go through with 2 wins. So there's a few more permutations in that group, which, contrary to most people's predictions, has turned out to be the more open one.
Yeah, I actually honestly can't say the second round of games I've really enjoyed watching players that I've not seen before or don't see very often playing in matches that are meaningful. I've absolutely loved it. It's. I mean, I think I said this on the last podcast, but it's a bit like watching a football World Cup when you watch South Korea or something like that, and there's only 3 players and then a bunch of other guys, and one of them could do something amazing. Honestly, watching Jatinder Singh hit those 2 boundaries off Shakib Al Hassan, like a guy I'd never heard of, going 4-6 off consecutive balls from Bangladesh's greatest ever player, it's those moments that make sport, and it's those moments that make World Cups.
And it makes a complete further mockery of the 10-team quote unquote World Cup in 2019, and it's good that that's being expanded beyond from 2027 onwards.
Yeah, sure. Thanks to Uma Mahesh in the chat. Nishal Niraula, I think I might have got that wrong. Sorry. Says there's absolutely no way Bangladesh isn't thrashing Papua New Guinea, so Oman v Scotland will be a straight knockout. Should we do a quick preview of or our predictions for those 2 matches now? I agree with Nishal here. Bangladesh are going to thrash Papua New Guinea, but I don't think that you don't need a crystal ball to make.
I don't know if it'll be a thrashing, but okay. Bangladesh seem to have got things together a little bit more. They seem to have actually worked out that they've got to play well to come through this tournament, and actually do have to take it, not take it seriously, because that's I think wrong. But I think that's not quite right. But they can't take it lightly, and they have to They have to turn up and play the right way, and make sure that they execute their game plan correctly. Papua New Guinea have a few too many holes in their team, and also the fact that they're coming into this off such poor preparation. I don't think it'll be a thrashing, but I think a lot's got to go right for Papua New Guinea and a lot wrong for Bangladesh for Bangladesh not to win that. But Papua New Guinea will give them a damn good fight. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
And then Scotland, Oman, I would just about say Scotland, maybe 60-40 or maybe even 55-45. But I think that's going to be an absolute beauty of a game.
I think that'll be a really good one. I think both of those teams have got some excellent players that are very, very well worth watching. I would probably also have Scotland as a 60-40 favourite, and we've got Ronan on after the game, who is Scottish. So I do quite hope that they win. Otherwise, that could be a little bit of a wake. But yeah. I'm going to go with Scotland. The main reason I think is that despite Oman having possibly an equal or possibly even slightly better bowling lineup, I just think Scotland across the piece have a slightly better.
They've got a very good spin attack. Oman's playing of and particularly bowling of spin is one of their weaknesses. They're not as good as their seam bowlers, who Bilal and Kalimullah and Fayaz are a genuine handful. But I think Scotland have their weaknesses aren't as weak as Oman's are. And some of that is basically the Oman players are all semi-pro. They're all playing for corporate teams in Oman. There isn't a proper professional structure. Scotland are on professional contracts, not big professional contracts, but professional contracts nonetheless. And those little differences in funding and in preparation do matter. Although Oman have played an awful lot more cricket recently than Scotland, but Scotland are a bit further ahead in their development, and wouldn't be a huge surprise if Scotland become a Test nation in the next few years.
Yeah, I think they're on that trajectory. If you are watching in the chat live, just let us know who you think will go through. Make sure you hit like and subscribe as well. Give us a boost to our numbers there. That helps. And I think just outside my window, I don't know if you can hear this, Nakul, but there's a preacher coming by. So if someone, it's not us telling you to convert to Christianity. That's a man in the street with a loud hailer. Let's move to Group A, where we will start this morning with the Netherlands, who face off against Namibia. And actually, the Netherlands, despite posting a good score of 164, saw that chased down with relative ease by Namibia. Gerhard, Erasmus and David Wiese were the stars for the Eagles, probably their two best players, as they really, really took a fancy to the Dutch slow bowlers. And they won in the end with an over to spare. Great performance, I thought, from Namibia here. And we thought they might have this in their locker. Everyone's been touting them as this explosive batting side. In the first game, Sri Lanka, it's fair to say, were just a bit too quick for them, like literally too fast. But today, against a fellow associate nation, they really showed why people said they might be able to get out of this group, Nakul.
Ryan Campbell, the Dutch coach, said before the tournament that they were the team he was most scared of playing. I think other associate nations go into games against Namibia thinking, oh God, this is going to be tough. And they showed it again today. They've got a very strange attack, Namibia. It's very Pakistani in the sense that it's all left armers, apart from David Wiese, 3 left arm pace bowlers and a left arm spinner in Bernard Scholz, who opens the bowling for them. The Netherlands, I've been very disappointed with the Netherlands in this tournament. They have the raw materials to be a very, very good team, but they haven't been their best 11 at any point. They have left out. They've got, and some of this definitely comes secondhand. Bertus de Jong, Crickbuzz's associate correspondent, is Dutch and follows them very closely. And he was saying that Bas de Leede hit the most dot balls of anyone in Netherlands domestic program, and he ended up batted 3 in the first game and ended up just floating further and further down the order this time. They left out Ben Cooper for him. Did bring in Stefan Myberg, who didn't make much of a difference. And then it sort of felt like this at the time, that 35 off 32 balls for Colin Ackerman in the middle meant that they took what could have been a very dominant position and didn't really get there. There is a thing with the Netherlands that they're quite cautious early on, and they have consistently struggled to to show much intent in the early stages, and it cost them again today in the sense that they gave Namibia a way back into the game. But Namibia, again, in terms of what people have been talking about, I think it was their coach Pierre de Bruin called it the bomb squad. Gerhard, Erasmus, David Wiese, and JJ Smit. And as soon as the Netherlands brought off their seam bowlers, they just climbed into them. Wiese and Erasmus are two very, very fine players. Erasmus is one of the best players around at associate level, and David Wiese has been smashing the ball around for fun in T20 leagues around the world. And it was just bizarre to watch the Netherlands consistently not bring their fast bowlers back, bowled the off spinner Ackerman at the wrong time. Buster later even bowled him over, and he absolutely wasn't expected to bowl by anyone who follows the Netherlands regularly. They didn't pick Paul van Meekeren, who did very well in the Caribbean Premier League, a player who's played at high level of T20 cricket. And you talked about Sri Lanka being too quick for them. Brandon Glover's their quickest bowler and did very well in the qualifier. Excuse me, and he was left out as well. So some slightly strange decisions for the Netherlands, who it's widely acknowledged don't know their best 11. And Namibia took advantage of the fact that they were given a chance, and in the end, eased to victory.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a cruise.
Yeah, it was. Wiese and Erasmus got them well ahead of the game after a start with some intent, but no real fireworks from the top three. And you look at the bowling figures: Colin Ackerman, Tim van der Gucht, and Rolf van der Merwe, and Buster Leder all going over 10 and over, and Logan van Beek not too far off either. Fred Klaassen and Peter Saylor are the only bowlers who did much of anything, and Saylor only ended up bowling 2 overs. Some baffling tactics, really, from the Netherlands, who haven't made the best use of what is a very decent team. And Ryan ten Doeschate didn't even end up batting in the first innings, which Scott Edwards did very well, coming in and blasting a few. But they are a team who've been short of cricket coming in, and they kind of look like a team who've been short of cricket coming in. And they have taken a team that won the qualifier and had a very good squad coming into it, and are now out with 1 game to go.
Yeah, I think
they've been the biggest underachievers for me of the first round.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's the headline news, isn't it, from from Group A, is that the Netherlands are out in 2 games, playing probably on paper the 2 weaker sides first up as well. I mean, they've still got Sri Lanka to come. Now, it's not impossible that they produce something amazing and beat Sri Lanka, but to salvage pride. But I would be a little bit surprised based on what we have seen. From a Namibian point of view, I mean, I think a lot of people around the world will know David Wiese, will have seen him do something, whether that's in the Blast, the PSL. I think he played a little bit in the 100. I think he's definitely played down under as well.
Played the CPL this year and did very well. He even played a bit of IPL for RCB a few years ago.
Sure. But Gerhard Erasmus, a lot of people say that he is the best of the current associate batters. So it was good to see him contribute reasonably substantially to this chase as well, with 32 from 22 balls. And I think you kind of got a sense of why people have been saying that. So it's good to see some of the better players come to the fore.
He looked good against Sri Lanka as well, and was really the only one who could who performed well in that game. He's a player who's got a lot of different gears, and he was a great foil for David Wiese, but he can also hit him hard himself. And Namibia are not to be taken lightly in that last game for Ireland.
I think that could be a good match. We'll get to that in a second. We'll make our predictions on that in a second, but we'll just quickly cover the final match of the 4. That was Sri Lanka overcoming Ireland with relative ease. Although Sri Lanka did, they started very badly, 8 for 3 at one stage before they recovered to 171. Unfortunately, Ireland never really threatened the total, failed to get going, lost Sterling early, who was maybe their key to a comeback. The headline player, Hasarangu, demonstrating, I think, what the difference is between the Ireland rung of teams and maybe the Sri Lanka rung of teams in world cricket at the moment.
I think Hasarangu is a player who would not have been out of place in the very best of Sri Lankan sides a few years ago, this is nowhere near. But he is a quality player. And he did very well batting up the order, although Ireland really did let Sri Lanka off the hook. They had such a chance of causing some panic in Sri Lanka, which they have been prone to do. Josh Little bowled really well up top. But then there was this one over where Simi Singh bowled and Hasaranga kept backing away, kept going over cover, and they kept not putting a deep cover or a long off in position. 4-4s, they were up and running. And all three seamers bowled well, Little Adair and Craig Young. But they got nothing out of their fifth bowler, Kantha and Simi Singh, both extremely expensive. Kantha, what a difference 48 hours can make for him. Actually bowled quite well in his first 2 overs, but his last 2 were expensive when Hasaranga and Pathum Nissanka, the first time he's done really much of anything in white ball cricket, showed why why people get very excited watching him from a Sri Lankan point of view. And then quality spin bowlers is something that Ireland have struggled with. They played Afghanistan a lot and still haven't worked out how to play Rashid Khan. Okay, a lot of people haven't, but still.
In fairness, Nakul, that's not. No one's written that manual yet.
His record against them is absurd, and Hasaranga and Tikshana were brilliant today. At every stage of the innings, there wasn't a single Irish player who looked like they knew they had a particularly good game plan against either of them. Tikshana, his kind of a Ajanta Mendes style at the front of the hand, Karen balls and leg breaks and off spinners, and Hasaranga getting real revs on the ball. He is an outstanding player. Sri Lanka are a team with a lot of issues and a lot of holes and a propensity for absolute panic. And even in this game, they were shambolic in the field, really, for large parts of the game until the end. But they've got 2 90-mile-an-hour pace bowlers, a leg spinner who can throw the ball both ways and can bat, and a very good sort of front-of-the-hand mystery spinner. Plus, I think Avishka Fernando is a much better player than he's shown in this tournament, and Kusal Pereira is quite useful as well. So they're a very odd team, and they're completely chaotic, but their best players have stood up in these first 2 games and have exposed the weaknesses of both Namibia and Ireland.
Yeah, I thought prior to this World Cup that there was a decent chance. I didn't think they were the favourites to be eliminated, but I thought there was a decent chance they wouldn't make it through this group. They have done.
I thought there was a decent chance, and I've been mocked on Guerrilla Cricket for this, of saying that they were going to finish. They might finish bottom of the group if things went badly. As it's turned out, things have gone very well for them, and their best players have stood up. How well they go beyond this from the Super 12 is anybody's guess, because of that completely chaotic nature. Just have a look at the draw to see who they're playing. If they finish top of Group A.
Well, this was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because the tournament had to clarify what the rules were for going through to the second round today, didn't they? There was at one point a briefing, I think, that Bangladesh and Sri Lanka would be seeded, so they wouldn't play in the same group. But that was clarified that will not be the case if one of them finishes second and one of them finishes first. But which group would they end up in?
Yeah, so if they finish A1, they'll be in the group with Australia, England, West Indies, and South Africa.
I think that's the weaker of the 2 groups.
I think so, certainly in these conditions. Warm-ups, who knows, but I don't think Australia or South Africa are that good. Cool.
Right then, let's quickly decide or quickly predict who will win the deciders. Sri Lanka, obviously, they're taking on the Netherlands. That's not a decider. That's basically to decide whether they win 3 out of 3. I think Sri Lanka should probably win that fairly comfortably based on what we've seen. In the other match, though, Ireland taking on Namibia, I think that's a bit closer and a bit harder to call than I think some people will imagine.
Yeah, I think so. Also, there's a small thing to bear in mind. The last round of Group A games are in Sharjah, not Abu Dhabi, which played completely differently to Abu Dhabi in the World Cup. The IPL rather. It got better as the tournament went on, but it has been slow. It has been low. I don't think it actually plays to either team's strengths particularly. But Ireland do have spinners they can bring into the 11. They've got Ben White, the leg spinner. They've got Andy McBride, the off spinner. George Dockrell plays as a batter these days, but can bowl a bit of spin. So I think they've got that base covered, I think, more than Namibia do, and it might not suit the power hitters so much. So I would just shade Ireland on that one. Again, a sort of 55-45, but just in Ireland's favour.
Yeah, I think it's really close. I'd be prepared to take the opposite side of that and say I think Namibia might pull off an upset. I'll
put it this way: it wouldn't be that much of an upset with this Namibia team and this Ireland team.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Okay, well there we go. That's the T20 World Cup as it stands. Aside from that, there were some warm-up matches, and I think quite a few people are waiting for us to probably get to this. So we'll start with the India v Australia match. Australia, they batted first. They scored 152 of the most hard-working runs you'll ever see. David Warner scored 1 from 7 balls, so his warm-up for this tournament continues very well. What's that? 1 run in 2 games from 8 balls. Strike rate of 25. That's good for Australia. Steve Smith picked up a few. Glenn Maxwell looked fluentish, and Stoinis managed to get them to not an embarrassing score, but it was effectively roadkill in the way of this India lineup, who won with 1 wicket down, and Rohit Sharma retiring after he'd hit 60 from 41 deliveries, including 3 sixes. India, Nakul, looks shit hot at the moment in the build-up to this tournament.
They've taken the handbrake off, haven't they? They've taken the handbrake off and thrown it out the window. They're just the intent has been really, really good to see. I confess I haven't watched that much of the warm-up games, and I'm not paying them too close attention because they are warm-up games. They're 12v12 games. Put it this way, India weren't taking this that seriously because Virat Kohli bowled 2 overs of whatever the hell he bowls. I don't know, off the wrong foot, sort of off spin. It's very hard to work out.
Gets more swing than James Anderson, Nakul.
Yeah, very, very, very strange. Did of course take a wicket in the World Cup semi-final to Lendl in the World Cup semi-final. I think he got Chris Gale out in that game. But Australia they're still so reliant on Maxwell. Warner's out. Even when Warner was in form in the 2019 World Cup, they were reliant on Maxwell, and I think it's even more the case this time. I don't know if they're going to be brave enough to drop him, but I think their chances would be better, honestly, if they did and had Marcus Stoinis opening with Aaron Finch, and then brought in somebody maybe Josh English or someone else into the middle order. Someone to take the.
There are bigger problems than that, even, I think. I mean, Mitchell Marsh is the option at number 3 here.
Mitch Marsh has actually been batting very well for them at that number 3 position in the games that they played this season.
I just refuse to believe that he's a better option than even Stoinis or Inglis or. I just think there's some odd decision making.
There's a lack of intent throughout that. Apart from Maxwell and Stoinis, Stephen Smith is there in case of a collapse. And I saw a few people saying, if Smith hadn't got this, they'd have been bowled out for 120 or whatever. But Stephen Smith is a kind of team that is the kind of player that very cautious teams pick and very almost fearful and timid teams pick. Australia still haven't worked out how to play T20 cricket at the international level. And the tactic appears to be Mitch Starc, Ashton Agar and Glenn Maxwell do something, which is not really a tactic.
No. On the India side of things, they bowled pretty well. Everyone got a bowl, including Kohli. Chakravarti didn't make his case, which I'm a bit sad about, and Ashwin probably did. I was hoping that India would choose Chakravarti over Ashwin, because I think he's a better T20 bowler. But I think based on these 2 warm-up matches, they're probably going to go with a seasoned campaigner, aren't they?
Probably. Got Warner and Mitch Marsh in consecutive overs. It will depend a little bit who they're playing, I suppose. With a team with a lot of left-handers, maybe they'll pick Ashwin. With a team with a lot of right-handers, maybe they'll pick Chakravarti. Good for Booby to get some form and confidence back for what little it means in a warm-up game. But if he's in rhythm, that's a big deal. It sounds like Hardik Pandya might actually bowl in the first game, despite the fact they say he'll be fit to bowl in the first game, but he hasn't bowled at all really in the last few months, and that is. That's going to be an issue potentially for India if they don't have that 6th bowling option. Presumably it's going to look like Rohit and Rahul will open with Kohli at 3, Surya Kumar Yadav at 4, Pant at 5, Hardik and Jadeja, which with the intent that they're showing and with Kohli kind of freed up to be a bit more aggressive, looks like a serious top 7.
Yeah, they're leaving Ishan Kishan out of the lineup in that case. Then,
a good player was going to have to miss out somewhere. Yeah. KR Rahul batted ridiculously well against England. Again, it's a warm-up game, but it doesn't.
Can we read anything into Rohit Sharma captaining here, or Kohli wanted a day off? Is that what we can read?
Pretty much. I mean, there's no possibility of Kohli not captaining through this tournament unless he gets injured.
Yeah, no. So it is just he did want to do the media stuff before the game or something like that. It's part of the transition plan rather.
He appeared to be treating it. He didn't bat, but he bowled 2 overs. He appeared to be treating this as a sort of centre wicket practice.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that a lot of the players were. I was just counting up the bowlers. I think there were like 15 bowlers used in this match, which isn't necessarily, well, it isn't a mark of quality really. Kohli doesn't bat. Matt Wade is batting 7 for Australia. They basically picked him because the other wicketkeeper wanted a day off or something, I assume.
Oh no, he is their first choice wicketkeeper.
Is he? I thought Inglis was going to come through here.
No, I don't think Inglis. The fact that Inglis hasn't played either of the warm-up games would imply not. I think Matthew Wade is the first choice keeper for Australia. You placed out Carey in the T20 side a little while ago because Carey wasn't scoring any runs.
I thought, I might be wrong about this, I'm just going to double check it, that Australia played New Zealand yesterday and they did. Inglis did play. He faced 2 balls and they sent in Ashton Agar in front of him, which tells you all you sort of need to know about the mindset and the decision-making process in this Australia side. Even if it's a warm-up match and they wanted Ashton Agar to go out and get a bat, it still doesn't really make sense that you wouldn't send out your actual batting option there. Anyway, Australia, I expect them to be quite bad at this tournament, which means they'll probably beat England in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, I think we saw.
They've got players capable of standout performances. No one can do what Maxwell can do. When Mitch Stark's at his best, no one can do what he can do. But there are so many holes.
Yeah. India, on the other hand, as you sort of outlined there with their top 7 and then their bowling, there aren't many holes at all. I mean, if Hardik bowls especially, then it's just another thing that they've got. I mean, it's Dan Weston on our pod 2 days ago. He was like, maybe the only thing they lack is a top 5 player who can bowl some off spin for match-up purposes, which is on your list of priorities as a T20 side, not in the top 10.
Maybe that's what Virat Kohli was trying.
It could be. So well played, India. They are looking good. In other warm-ups, England took on and beat New Zealand. I didn't think there was that much to read into this match either. I thought this was a real warm-up, although it was good to see Tymal Mills and Mark Wood bowl. If you are an England fan, then it's encouraging to see that the high-pace approach that England have gone for could pay dividends against proper teams. Otherwise, I honestly haven't got much to say about this match.
No, Joss Buttler can bat and Alder Rashid can bowl. We didn't really need a game to tell us that,
No.
To be honest. David Malan might have played himself out of the 11 in these 2 warm-up games. Presuming that Livingston and Moeen both play, and the fact that Livingston's bowling as much as he is, and the fact that Moeen batted so well. And Morgan apparently basically said to Moeen before the first warm-up game, I'd quite like to give you a rest, but Moeen said he wanted to play that game. Billings is just a very unfortunate player, full stop. I think he's just found himself the next cab off a rank in a team that already has too many batters to fit into it. I really, really would like Tymal Mills to play alongside Mark Wood. And
you want to see the best players in the world, right? And I think without a doubt, Tymal Mills is one of the best players in the world at the moment.
In his role, yeah. And will they be brave enough to drop Chris Jordan, who would be the obvious one to drop out for him? It looks as though then, if that's not the case, then only one of Wokes or Willie could play, which does damage England in the power play, which is something they've struggled with, certainly without Archer. But I think with England, their batting is destructive, and is destructive even on slow pitches with the likes of Bairstow and Moeen and Livingston in the middle order, particularly Bairstow, who I think is people almost forget how good he is at hitting spin in the middle overs. And basically, if Morgan finds any form at all, it's a massive bonus and makes them even stronger. So in terms of that, we haven't learned that much. But no. It's always nice to see Buttler bat and Rashid bowl.
Yes, yeah, it always is, and hopefully we see a fair amount of that over the next few weeks. And the final game that I only want to touch on for 2 seconds, and we have a couple of questions to answer before we wrap up, was Afghanistan smashing the West Indies. Afghanistan posted 189. Mohammad Shahzad, it's always good to see him back playing. Picked up 50s opening up for Afghanistan, and then West Indies in response just, they never got out of first gear. To be honest, they barely got out of reverse as they fell 60-odd runs short for 5 wickets. I get the sense, but looking at that scorecard, that maybe they weren't trying that hard.
Mohammed Nabi is a fine cricketer, but bowls himself for the first 4 as captain's prerogative. 4 overs, 2 maiden, 3 for 2? Really? Sure, fine. Got Lendl Simmons, Evan Lewis, and Shimron Hetmeyer out, which is not a bad effort. Roston Chase taking anchor a bit too literally. I think he's a good player, Roston Chase, in that top 4, and I think could be very useful for the West Indies in this tournament if they decide to go with him. But 54 or 58 wasn't really worth writing home. Really, the only thing there, Andre Russell got back on the field and even bowled a couple of overs, and Nicholas Pooran got some runs. There was news today from West Indies that Fabian Allen's out of the tournament with an ankle injury. They've replaced him with fellow left-arm spinner Akil Hussain, who's done very well in the last couple of CPLs, but obviously you don't have Allen's batting and an electric fielding, so that might change the balance of the attack. But yeah, I'm not sure how much to read into that, other than Afghanistan have some really good spinners and some quite good attacking batters at the top of the order. Hazratullah Zazai is very limited, but if he gets it in his arc to swing over the leg side, he's extremely talented. I covered the Afghanistan Island T20s when he smashed 178, the highest score in T20, 173 or whatever it was, the highest score in T20 international history. And when he hit, you can't stop him when he's hitting over the leg side like that. But it is pretty much the only place he hits. Mohammad Shahzad, it's been a bit of a worry, I think, from people who follow Afghanistan that he's been batting a little bit cautiously since he came back into the team, but there was none of that today. And Ramanullah is a very good player to watch for the tournament as well. Ramanullah Gurbaz. Afghanistan are a decent team, and they've got, if they can sort of get out their own way, I think they'll be a danger to the rest of the teams in Group 2.
Yeah. I think they could be. Ramanullah Gurbaz as well, who's a man I've heard a lot about but never seen play. Picked up 33 from 26 with a couple of sixes, which is decent, if not quite as explosive as Dan Weston had told me he would be. Question over on Twitter, with a couple of questions. We've got one here and a few on our Patreon, or 2 on our Patreon, I think. Furnace58 asks, quite simply, can you please rate all of the team's jerseys? Nakul, I'm not going to make you do that, but have you got a top 2?
Yeah, Papua New Guinea and Sri Lanka.
Papua New Guinea and Sri Lanka, yeah, I think they're the crowd favourites, aren't they? I quite like Scotland's. I mean, Papua New Guinea, obviously, it's a statement. It's a statement piece of clothing. That, I like
Scotland is nice. Scotland is nice. Also, the nice little touch of if you if you listen to Football Cliches podcast, Classy Touch, was designed by a 12-year-old who, by the way, she's got a future, right? That is a properly good kit. That looks like a really professionally designed kit. It's fantastic. But Sri Lanka's with the lovely lion detail, the fact that the lion looks absolutely furious at being on the shirt, the Papua New Guinea with the swirls and the sunburst is very, very nice. There is a very high standard of kit in this tournament.
Yeah, there is. It's a good one. It's a good tournament for kits. Over on Twitty, Patreon, Swami has asked 2 questions. First of all, this is a question. I'm going to paraphrase this slightly. It's about the soft signal situation for catches and kind of what our views on that. I think this is one of those ones where there isn't actually really a perfect solution, because the cameras don't solve the problem in the way that people think they'll solve the problem, because they're all pointing down at a 25-degree angle, which means they don't actually give you the view that you need.
Mark Nicholas proved this on Channel 4 15 years ago.
Yeah.
With just mapping 3D to 2D, particularly when you're looking front on, slightly different from the side. But when you're looking front on at a low catch, it always looks as though, through something called foreshortening, it always looks as though the ball is closer to the ground than it actually is, and you don't get the perspective of the fingers under the ball. There were 2 instances where the soft signal was used, and the correct decision was made today in the game between Ireland and Sri Lanka. The umpires had said, I think this came up during the IPL, didn't it? that they weren't going to. Oh no, during the England-India white ball series in India, that they weren't going to use the soft signal for boundary catches because they're too far away to give a signal. But I think in both cases, someone obviously saw something. In the case of the Delaney catch, I think the umpire was in a good position to see that, and so to give a soft signal. And in the case of the Chamika Karunaratne stepping on the rope, I think he had pretty much signaled that he'd stepped on the rope.
Which is a good signal, to be honest, isn't it?
I think that they were, and in that case, the soft signal doesn't matter because the camera can prove that conclusively. Yeah. It can conclusively prove whether someone has stepped on a rope. For those low catches, I think the soft signal can muddy things more than it helps them for boundary catches, and for the very low catches. But until we get even better cameras for the side on and the slow mos, so that we can get very, very pin sharp things, I don't know if that's that much you can do. And there is just the fundamental question of it's mapping to 3D to 2D is never going to be visually perfect.
Yeah. And the second question that he asked, and if you are a patron, patreon.com/the cricket pod, we'll always answer your questions no matter how ridiculous. And Swami has tested us in the past.
That wasn't a ridiculous.
No, that was a good one. But he has asked some ludicrous questions, just to see if we'll do it. I think. It's a great talking point when a non-regular or an associate nation wins a game via test playing nation. It might be a bit harsh on them, but he feels, this is Swami here, that the further an associate nation goes in a World Cup, the better it is for the remaining test-playing nations. The case in point being the 2003 World Cup semis between India and Kenya. Do you have any comments on that? I'm not sure I agree with that. I remember I was 11, I think, in 2003. I remember being quite engaged by Kenya getting to the semi-final. Who was the bloke? They had a 42-year-old off-spinner, or a left-arm off-spinner, who bowled an amazing spell against Australia in the Super Six. They were a good story.
Kenya were a good team back then. I mean, they've lost a lot of their players, but
I mean, it's obviously a walkover in a semi-final, but it doesn't. Well, I mean, they deserve to get there.
I mean, wasn't necessarily given how well they played in the Super Sixes in that tournament. Asif Karim bowled a ridiculous spell against Australia. Bowled it like a run-on over for 10 overs. Look, I mean, no,
and you got Ponting and Darren Lehmann out as well, or something like that. It was two good wickets.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think just the fact that we remembered that he got who he got out and in what circumstances and stuff shows that there's merit to this moment. I don't remember the India v Kenya semi-final, and I don't even know who Australia played in the actual semi-final. But
I mean, that tournament from the 2003 World Cup, Australia was so much better than everyone. I don't think it would have mattered. It was ridiculous.
Apart from Asif Karim.
Apparently.
And Shane Bond, actually. I do remember that too.
Yes. And briefly England until Andy Bickle and
yes.
That was about the one game they got close to losing in that tournament. But no, I don't think so. I mean, if a team's riding a crest of a wave, then they can be very hard to play against. And there's no doubt that the standard of associate cricket is much higher than it's ever been. COVID has slightly destroyed that for some teams, but case in point, in the 2018 World Cup qualifier, which a ridiculous tournament, it was such a harsh tournament, but West Indies came within a bad LBW decision of not qualifying for the tournament. Afghanistan lost their first 3 games in that tournament before Asghar came off his sickbed to get them through to the tournament. Ireland or Scotland or Zimbabwe could easily have qualified for that tournament in their place, and very nearly did. I think there is someone did a diagram that sort of you can do a chain of X beat Y beat Delta beat, and you just go all the way around in that tournament. You can do it a couple of different ways. Ireland and Scotland and the Netherlands and I think in a few years Oman. Nepal, if they can get themselves sorted, because they've got some very good cricketers and an absolutely cricket mad population, are all teams. Papua New Guinea in a couple of years, once they've recovered a bit more from COVID, are all teams who can who deserve to be playing more cricket and more cricket against the top nations. We're seeing this a little bit with the Super League, the ODI Super League of the Netherlands and Ireland, and getting to play regular cricket against the full member nations. The fact that cricket artificially divides itself in this way into full members and everyone else, and even within the full members, it's the big three and everybody else. Cricket's got a long way to go to be a properly global sport, but no, I don't think so. Why is it better to play the team who are playing better than the team ranked higher above them who've played badly?
Yeah, I agree. And if it turns out to be a bit of a one-sided match, well, that's sport, isn't it? You know,
that can happen.
We watched we all just watched the Sunrisers team that were flipping dreadful. We had to sit through that, didn't we? Nobody called for them, apart from me, to be kicked out of the IPL.
There'll be a couple of, we said, the 2019 World Cup. West Indies demolished Pakistan in an incredibly one-sided game. It happens all the time. Like, games of cricket are sometimes one-sided because that's what happens sometimes. I mean, that 2003 World Cup, Australia smashed everybody apart from England in that.
Also, how funny is it, let's be honest, when England lose to Holland or lose to Ireland?
Yeah, and they lost to, I mean, they lost.
Whoever it is.
That was a fantastic game last year when Stirling and Balbirnie got Ireland over the line. When Scotland beat England in that ODI in Edinburgh, I mean, that was just a fantastic performance all round from Scotland. Bairstow scored a 70-ball 100 and England still lost because Scotland had got so many runs on the board. It was very funny when a not particularly good Netherlands team who beat them twice in the T20 World Cups, or when an Ireland team beat a quite decent England team in the 2011 World Cup. It is funny, if say Australia lose to who's going to finish B2, Scotland, say maybe, everyone will love that potentially. They're great stories, and we're unfortunately still at the stage where beating a full member nation, or basically winning when people are watching you on TV, seems to be the only way that associate nations can actually get people to take notice of what they've been doing and building up their structures over many, many years. There are a lot of associate nations who have better cricketing structures underpinning them, some of those I've just mentioned, for example, than, for example, Sri Lanka or Afghanistan.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably see a few of them come through in the next few years. And if we don't give them the chance, we'll never know, will we? I mean, Scotland, you said they might get test status at some point in the near future. It wouldn't stun me if in 10 years' time they were a test team.
I personally think that any two teams should be able to play a 5-day multi-ball game and call it a test match. Also bring back the Intercontinental Cup, but that's a different rank.
Right, let's wrap this one up. Thank you very much for listening and for watching. Just a quick reminder of some things you need to know. We're sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at The Cricket Pod. We did post our schedule over the next few days, and it's basically every day. So I don't know if I need to go into too much detail. We've got Ronan on tomorrow to talk about Scotland's qualification, hopefully. We'll see what happens on Friday. Then Saturday and Sunday, hopefully we'll have Dan Weston around for one of those, and obviously we'll do a good show for India v Pakistan. In among all of that as well, if you're sick of the ICC commentary, then Nakul, you can probably now plug Guerrilla Cricket and anything else you want to for anyone who's
I'm sure most of you are familiar with Guerrilla Cricket who are cricket podcast listeners and viewers, but yes, Guerrilla Cricket will have every day of the World Cup. We'll be doing independent commentary with fun musical jingles for players and events and so forth. And we'll absolutely properly engage with you on social media as we do. So it's a key part of the show, and we'll have some very good people on over the next few weeks, including Jack. We're there for the Oman Scotland game tomorrow night, and then the Ireland Namibia game on Friday morning, and then every subsequent game from the Super 12s and the semi-finals and the final. If you get tired of the commentary or you just want to change, turn the TV on, turn it down, and turn on Guerrilla Cricket. Yeah,
Max is doing tomorrow's game, so if you want to hear Max's commentary debut, actually, then Guerrilla Cricket is the place to go. 3 p.m. tomorrow if you're in the UK or whichever time zone that corresponds to elsewhere in the world. Nakul, we've done a little bit longer than expected. We wanted to do 40 minutes. It's actually closer to the target time than some of the shows you've done with us. Thanks very much for joining us, and we will catch you, I'm sure, again during this World Cup.
Cheers, Jack.
Cool. All done.